13.
14, sorry. Yeah.
14. So that's like 14 weeks then, isn't it? So that's 3 months. Subhanallah. And we're just about to finish chapter 2. With lots of detailed analysis. Okay, so inshallah, let's recalibrate into Arabic now. No English, no Punjabi, no classical Arabic, no Urdu. So let's try and get our brains into that, inshallah. And what I'm going to do is actually just go back to basics very quickly to just give us a little bit of revision back to the basics before we go into the text again. Okay. So Jumla. How many types of Jumla are there? Two. Which are?
Ismiya
and Fi'liya. Okay. So with Ismiya, how do we break down a Jumla Ismiya?
There is starts with ism and then
terminology is important because then we'll get confusion later on when we go into more detail. So the terminology is very important. And it so happens that a mubtada can be an ism. So you're kind of right, but it's a mubtada and a khabar because a khabar can also be an ism. So how do you differentiate the two? Okay. So yes.
So mubtada is only ism, right? Khabar is also ism, right?
Can be.
But mubtada is definitely
mubtada.
Mubtada.
Yeah, mubtada.
Ibtada.
The
Iraq.
see? Mubtada. Okay. And then you've got the khabar. Okay. Mubtada, khabar. Okay. And yes, in general, the one rule that I want you to just stick in your mind is that every rule, no matter how universal that rule, there's always an exception. And the exception has a reason. So it's not just an exception for the sake of an exception. There's always a reason. So in general, yes, the mubtada will always be an ism. Let's start with this point. So yeah. So in general, it's going to be an ism. Okay. But khabar, we shouldn't be asking the question, should it be an ism? Isn't that right, Ali Bhai?
Yeah,
No, I said khabar.
Yeah, but
We shouldn't be asking the question, oh, is it only just ism, right? Because after the chapter 2, we know we've been through many examples. Can you give me one? Since you said it was just an ism. So let's recorrect that.
no, it could be anything. It could be Jabbar, or it could be
Jabbar?
No, yeah. So he's thinking here.
What do you mean by that?
No, what I'm saying, it could be Dasab, it could be there, it could be.
That's nothing to do with the question. That's just the grammatical state. Okay? There's nothing to do with words. Words are going to be verbs, they're going to be harfs, and they're going to be isms, right? There's nothing to do with mansoob or that. That's not my question. If my question was, can isms have grammatical states? Then you're right in answering yes, they can be. But that's not my question. And this is where the confusion lies. Yeah? So that's where you have to really go back to the basics of A, B, C and understand this point. So why is it, give me an example of a khabar that isn't an ism.
Anybody? Or
Alisa first. Because I want him to... Don't worry, everyone will get their
It
turn.
is not then it could be. It could be verb, fail.
Yes, could be, yes. That's right. So it could be like a khabar could have like a verbal sentence in it. You know, remember that was one of the things that good, yeah. Jazakallah khair. You're right. So it could be a verbal sentence. So it doesn't have to be an ism. Okay. But a verbal sentence can't occupy the mubtada. Right? Because it would be a verbal sentence. We're not dealing then with a jumla ismiya. So it has to be in general an ism in the mubtada. Okay? And in general it would be the definite article. Right? Meaning the book. Okay? introduced. Mubtada means introduced. So with that in mind, just so that you can just get a bit more clarification on this, if we went like the tall boy, okay? So if for it to be a jumla, we said it has to be al waladu. Okay, so here al-waladu would be the mubtada and tawilun would be the khabar. Okay, so in general the mubtada, and it's very simple, is with a definite article. If I did this, same words, what happens here? These are dhammas, by the way. So what's the difference? For both words, what's the difference?
One is the boy,
Yes.
and the other one is boy is tall.
That's not my question. Although my question was vague, what's the grammatical difference?
It is Mawsuf Sifa.
Mawsuf sifa. Does everyone get that? So here is a jumla. Here is a ghayr mufid. It's a phrase. More specifically, mawsuf sifa. Waladun tawilun. Both have the same words in it. And likewise, if we did this, al-waladu tawilu. Okay, what are we dealing with there?
Both are definite.
Yes. So that means what?
Violently.
Yes. What type?
Murakkab.
Murakkab. What does murakkab mean?
A combination of
Words. To make either. So you've got kalima, one word. Murakkab divides into two things.
Mufid and ghayr mufid.
Mufid and ghayr mufid. So you can't go back up. So if it's not ghayr mufid, it can't be murakkab because murakkab can be ghayr mufid or mufid. So if it's ghayr mufid, then you have to go further down into there. So what's the next step down for ghayr mufid? Which one would it be? Morning.
There are 15 parts.
Zubair by time. That your time will come, inshallah. So is Ghayr Mufid correct? It's a Murakkab, correct. So Murakkab, Ghayr Mufid, correct. Then we go further down. So we have to then, what's the next step? We have to then talk about what? It's a Ghayr Mufid, which means a phrase. So at the waladu at the wheel must be waladun tawilun al waladu at the wheel. Is this matching this? And so Zubair, if that's matching match, so what did Amr Bai say that this was? I'll come back to you. This is
yes, this is
yes. You're gonna say. I want it to come out. You'll never forget it, inshallah. MashaAllah, barakallah, you got there. Alhamdulillah. So this one's a Mawsul Sifa, and this is obviously a Mawsul Sifa because they're matching. Al, single dhamma. And here, and masculine.
At-Tawil, At-Tawil.
At-Tawilu. So there's no alif at the wheel. Yeah, there's no alif there at the wheel. Okay, but you put the al before it, yeah? The wheel. Okay. Alright?
Sorry, can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Go ahead.
Very first one, al-waladu tawilun, and this al-waladu tawilu.
Yeah.
So, just because there is double dhamma, why does it change its definition?
Okay, so look, if we look, well, this is the interesting thing, this is what I wanted you to have a look at. So, these two are ghayru mufids, yeah? This one is the jumla, alright? And the interesting thing with the jumla is that they're not matching. That's how you recognize. One is indefinite article and one is indefinite,
Right.
alright? These other examples, they're both saying indefinite. So although this is matching this one, it's not matching the first. So that gives you the clue that you're dealing with something else.
Right.
Because for a mubtada and khabar, they can't match like that. Because then if they match, there will be a phrase, it will be a mawsul sifa.
Yeah.
So that has to rule it out, because it's against the grammatical. Same as this bottom one, that you've got al-walad and at-tawil. So they're matching in every way. So that's why it cannot be a sentence. It's got to be a mawsul sifa because they're matching.
Right. But would the meaning be the same?
Sorry?
Would they have the same meaning though?
No, because the top meaning would be the boy is. Remember,
Okay, so there is an is. Yeah.
tall.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Remember, the is implicit within Arabic language.
Yes.
There is no word for is. It's
Right.
assumed.
Yeah.
Okay? In the second one, waladun tawilun, it means a small boy. And al-waladu at-tawilu means the small boy. Right? So this is more specific about the small boy, whereas that one is less specific, it means a small boy. So there's obviously a different meaning. But yet, what the interesting thing I want you to grasp is that all three examples have the same words in them. And so, but they have totally different meanings. Right? Okay. So that we answer, that is mawsul sifa. Okay. So it's like mawsul, yeah, mawsul. And sifa, sorry. And a mawsul means basically the one that is being described. And that normally is a noun. Both are isms. Right? Because remember we said isms are of Zahid,
Four different.
which are
It's a noun.
yes,
It's
pronoun.
pronoun.
Yeah.
Some two more adverbs.
Adverbs and
Adverbs.
adjectives.
Adjectives.
Yes. So sifa would be an adjective in this example, yeah? So this would be an adjective. So both are isms, but this one is noun, and it would be an adjective, yeah? And so the mawsuf means, this sifa is the description, and mawsuf means that which is being described, which is obviously the noun. So in this example, the boy is the mawsuf because it's being described as being tall, and the descriptor is tawil, for tall. Okay? Alright? So you've got that. Now, within that normative sentence, and this is what we'll be doing a lot of examples of. So if we go into this top one, al-waladu tawilun, if we want to make it past tense, how do we do that? Now, this is open to anybody. Kana. Right? So this is the thing that we just get our heads around. Kana. Okay? So the kana, so what we understand is that there are actually particles or harfs or verbs that can actually come before a sentence. Right? To modify it. But yeah, so it could be that. Can anyone give me another example of perhaps a harf that could modify this sentence? Inna. So there you'll have, so this will make it into the past, as in was. And this will be indeed, right? Okay, these are the two ones that we've come across. So that will be indeed the boy is tall, right? However, when we have words that come before it, it modifies it, not only in meaning, but also Alibi, in grammatical states, which is what you talked about. Okay? And those grammatical states are what, Alibi? Which you said. The grammatical states for isms. What are they? And how they reflected.
Oh, Rafa
Yes.
and Jar
Yes.
and Nasab.
Nasab, mashallah. And nasab is in general reflected by what?
Rafa.
No.
Rafa.
And nasab is normally reflected by what?
It's there the
You need the word, you're going to come out with it, inshallah.
it's Dhamma.
No. Spot the compassionate one. You'll can't argue. Dhamma, kasra, and that's two. There's three, you said. So that's two. Dhamma, kasra, and fatha. And so nasab will be reflected by a fatha. Rafa will normally be reflected by,
Dhamma.
and jar will be reflected by. Good to repeat it because it will just get. And when we say, I use the word deliberately reflected because I just want you to know what I'm talking about by when I say reflected. And what is being reflected, Anibay?
Reflected.
What are we talking about? So physically, what are we talking about? So what?
Subject.
No.
Are reflected by at the end of the.
What type of words are reflected like this?
Ism.
Ism. And what part of the ism is reflected like this?
At the end.
Very good. Okay. So we take bait. Mashallah, you got through that, mashallah. Well done. So
No more questions.
You've done your dues for today, mashallah. You're off the hook now.
No,
You
you
relax.
sleep.
So as Ali Bai said, is that so it's the end bit. So it would be baytun for rafa. It would baytun for nasab. Okay. And baytin for jar. Okay. That's in most cases. Remember, there are always exceptions, and we know some of those exceptions, but there's always a reason for the exception. That's the thing. That's the key thing in Arabic. That if there's an exception, it's not a random thing. There's a reason, a logic why it's an exception. Okay. All right. And now we know that because the reason I mentioned grammatical states is because without the kana and inna, what is the grammatical state for anybody of the mubtada and the khabar?
Kana is Rafa.
No.
It's Nasab for Kana.
No. Ignore kana. I'm blocking it. Al-waldu tawilun. What is the grammatical state of just that sentence? Yes. There's no trick questions here. So is it for both or for one?
Yeah, no.
Both. Correct. You're right. So you have Rafa and Rafa, yeah? Okay? Now, when Kana comes along, I'll put this, it's in red. When Kana comes along, it makes it into was, so that goes to was. So the boy was tall. That's what Kana does. Okay. So what does it do to the grammatical states of each of those words?
So whatever would stay in the first name.
Correct?
So that is Ism of Kana.
Yeah.
The meaning would be into Nasab.
Yeah. Easy. And that's what we've been doing for the past few weeks, yeah? Just going through the Kana lesson. And so, and what about Kana? What is this about Kana? What is it? Philanakis, which is a type of... No. Type of, yeah. It's a verb, okay, but because it modifies a nominative sentence, that's why it's called a fi'l naqis, which basically means auxiliary verb. It just basically, it's a verb that really is there to modify a nominative sentence and puts it into the past. So it modifies it in meaning and in grammatical state. So if that's the case, then Anna, if we do kana, no, this is easy for you. This is just a warm up for you. Anna. We'll get more, yours will come later. This is just a given. This is just this is just a little. You're just getting up. This so what would be the grammatical? How would it be reflected? So kana al
Waladu.
yeah.
Tawila.
Yeah. Okay. And you might see like a alif just so that it just to break it. Yeah. But yeah, but it being in fatha. Okay. So that's that. The inna again, right? What's the difference between inna and kana, Amr?
It changes.
Inna in terms of the words.
Because inna itself is a harf.
Correct.
And it is.
And what specifically? What type of
Amal.
It's an amal. So it's a governing agent, meaning it modifies. So, and can you give me an example of a harf that doesn't modify things? What's ahead of it?
Is it like, I think illa won't modify it? Because B does, Fi does. I'm
So
trying to see the
prepositions.
prepositions.
So jars will.
Yeah.
Anna?
So words like wa.
Wa would be a good, easy example. Wa, which means and. So it's conjunction. Yeah. So they will not modify things. But inna is a harf that does. Okay. So for inna, so it would then mean indeed. So how would it change the grammatical state of the next two words? Al-waladu tawilun. Anybody?
Sorry, repeat your question again.
So how, well, you know it means indeed the boy is tall. So how does it change the grammar? Does it first change the grammatical state? We said it does because it's amal. So how does it change the grammatical states? From rafa for the mubtada and khabar, what does it do to the mubtada and khabar?
It changes other way.
It's the other way. Correct. So this goes to rafa and the nasab goes to the mubtada. Alright? So, and we have different expressions because it's modifying. We then talk about the ism of kana, right, stays in rafa, and the ism of inna changes to nasab. Right? So, straightforward sentence, rafa. With kana, stays rafa, goes to nasab. For inna, it's nasab and rafa. That's all. You just got to remember that.
So the innal walada tawil.
Yeah, tawilun.
Innal walada tawila.
Innal.
Inna Allaha. So, inna walada.
Innal walada.
Yeah.
Not inna walada tawila.
No, because it's al, you have to
Yeah, it will
combine
stay.
it.
Innal walada tawilun. Okay? And the way you can remember, like, Inna Allaha ma'a sabirin. Yeah, so indeed Allah is with those who are patient. Inna Allaha. Yeah? Okay? So that we one way of remembering.
So in that case, though, so is it sabri? Like how would it? Or it is that is because it's run by the words before.
Sabirin is in the grammatical sense. So you've got sabirun and sabirin. So sabirun is a fully reflecting. So sabirin will be in jar because of min, and it is ina, and it's not the noon, it's the ya. So from wa to ya. So wa would be rafa, and ya would be in for nasab and in jar. But we haven't come to that yet. But that's later down. That's a plural. We'll talk about that later. But for simple, this is like this. It's tawil lum to tawilun. Okay, or al-walada from al-waladu, depending on what comes before it. Okay, and this becomes important because sometimes what you find, and remember we said this in the very beginning of the lessons, is that because of the reflections of the grammatical state, you can put the verbs and the subjects and the mubtada and the khabar anywhere in the sentence. So in English, you would have to introduce them by saying the book. Or the child. Let's do al-waladu tawilan. But you could put, let's think, like kana tawilan, kana tawilun al-waladu. And you can swap it around. Because al-waladu will always be in rafa, because it's the ism of kana. So you can put the ism anywhere, because the grammatical states follow it. So you can just swap it around. And remember we used the example of daraba zaydun amaran. Or you can say amaran daraba zaydun. Alright, you can just swap it, and you can even put the verb at the end. You can put amaran zaydun daraba, which still means that Zayd hit Amr. But you put Amr first. In English you can't. In order you say Amr ko Zayd ne mara. And vice versa. Yeah? Alright? So that's where you'll see things moving around a bit, and you'll get lost if you keep thinking, you know, the first thing that comes after kana must be the subject. That's in English. Alright? And then you'll get confused. Why is that the subject? Because you don't realise that actually, you know, that it's got a different reflection. So if it's in a fatha, then you must know that kana. This cannot be the ism of kana. All right. So it cannot be the subject. It must be the object of kana. Right. And we will see that with the grammatical test that we've done. But I just want you to just get a gauge on that. Okay. So let's now go to the text on this basis. All right. That was just a bit of a refresher. And so you should fly through these texts which we did last time, because it's all of that. So here you go. Look, I'll do the first one. Okay. So you know you've got the kana, and kana. Right. So you know automatically you're dealing with a kana that's modifying a normative sentence. You know that. That should be, you're straight away in there. And you know that it has to be either an ism of kana or a kabar of kana. Right? Okay, it's got to be an ism of kabar of kana. That's your big divisions. Yeah? And so immediately what you have to do is find the ism of kana. Okay? Now obviously, the book has made it easy for you because they put in general the first word that comes after kana is actually the ism of kana. Right?
Is there another thing that whenever the kana comes, say this is actually a past tense anyway? Or you consider?
You can, again, there's always exceptions. Because kana has multiple meanings depending on what kind. It means to be. So like for example, kun fayakun. Be and it will be. Yeah? So kun fayakun is not was and was, you know, you look at the context of the sentence. So in here you'll be able to recognise where it comes into. But here you can quite easily see that the ism of kana is all this. Yeah? Because the first thing that's following it's in rafa. All reflected. Yeah? So that's really easy, isn't it? Yeah. Right? Now I want to take you back to the very first chapter to give you an example where it doesn't come first. So just so that you can see that here. So here, just so you can see where it doesn't come first and where you might get confused because you're not realising but you won't because you've gone through the grammar. So if we take this sentence here, already we see can. The next thing after is a fee. So you know automatically it cannot be because that's not an ism of can. So you can rule that out. So that cannot be. All right, and then a fee always is followed by an ism that follows it. So that these two are connected. So those two cannot be. Alright? But you see rajulun. So there's your ism of kana. And then you think, well, okay, it starts here. Does it end here? Or does it carry on? Well, remember what we said. The rule is that you've got to end the phrase relationships. Phrase relationships means that is the next word connected to it in some phrase relationship. Right? So we know one, which is following a preposition. The other one we know is the mawsul and sifa as our number 2. Right? And then remember the third one was mudaf ilayh, like Zayd's book, Kitabu Zaydin. Right? So we know the 3 phrases. So we go and say, is it any of those 3? If it's not, then we just cut it off. So we see rajulun mashhurun. So we can see that these are 2 isms, we can see that they both have dhammatain and they're both masculine. So what we can do is carry that on forward. Alright? Okay. And then we say, does it cut off here? And then, or does it carry on? It actually carries on here. Why? Because there's a phrase relation between jiddan and mashhurun. Why? We haven't covered this yet, but we remember what we said, adverbs can modify not only verbs, but they can also modify adjectives. So mashhurun, being famous, is an adjective, right? And jiddan means very. Alright? So it's modifying the adjective here, an adverb. Yeah? Maf'ul mutlaq we call it. Yeah? So then it goes all the way across here. So the important thing that you can see here is that first of all, that the ism of kana is not coming first. The second point you can notice is that it's not just one word. It can be a compound structure, haraka. Of rajul, mashurun, jiddan. All of that is the ism of kana because they're all connected together. You can't separate them out because these are all connected. This is a mawsul. So what you would then do is like you would say that this is a mawsul and this is a sifa. Okay? Sorry, in fact, so the sifa would go all the way across here. Okay? And that's how you subdivide that. Alright? Okay? But there you see an example. Okay? That makes sense? Okay, good. And then let's go back to this one. And the one that I want to...
There was another line.
Yeah. Yeah, go back to it, yeah.
Yeah. وَقَالَ فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ
Yeah.
So, فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ, that's from the ism.
So, which this one here?
Yeah. وَقَالَ فِي هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. So, okay, the same rule applies.
Oh, so this one is in the can.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Then asnam is the ism where fi hadal baiti. So
Yes, you're right. So the kana is the fi'l naqis, al asnamu is the actual ism of kana, and this is the khabar of kana. So the ism of kana delayed, you can say, and this is the khabar of kana coming first. And so in this example, the ism of kana is one single word, whereas in the other one it was rajulun mashhurun jiddan. Here it's just asnamun, and there you had the fi. You still had the fi qaryati, but here you have fi hadal bayti. Still connecting. Why? Because fi has to be followed by a noun, an ism, and this is al bayt. But hadha is also connected to that. These will go together, right? And
That's why it's not in Rafa as well.
That's why it's not in Rafa, because the fi,
Because of the fee.
yeah, will make this whole thing into jar. So, but the whole whole compound structure is in Rafa, but it's not reflected. You can't see any reflection of it because each word has to worry about itself. So this fi overrides this overall Rafa state, which it is, but this word has to comply with what's after it. So the fi makes it go into jar, and so it has to reflect in with a kasra. So that on itself, you can't say. So if I'm just looking at this bait, I can't say that this is in the state of Rafa. You cannot say that. You have to say it's in the state of jar, and you say it's a state of jar because it's in a jar majrur phrase relationship. Okay, if you look at the word individually.
Is that Rafa state or in Nasab state? Because that's a khabar.
Sorry, yeah, I beg
No,
your
I just
pardon.
want to.
Yeah, beg your pardon. Yeah, sorry, it's in nasab. Yeah, sorry, I forgot the can. So this is correct. So this would be nasab state. Yeah, correct. So, but you see, again, same principle. The nasab is not reflected by fatha because each word has to worry about itself. Now, if, for example, the fi wasn't there, then it would be sure. How's the bayta? So, then you'd get it. Yeah, but because of the fi, it overrides it, and it will then be.
And there's one more question.
Yeah.
Ism is repeated here, like asnam, kasira.
Yes.
So I thought in Arabic there's no comma. So in
So these full stops, commas, are actually systems that are added on to make it easier for the reader. But you're absolutely right, is that you don't need it. In fact, I'm at the stage where they interfere. You'll get to the stage where it's interfering with my analysis because I don't need it. You can work it out on the basis. The comment doesn't help you. The authors put it on for children because they're learning it. Yeah? So you don't need any commas. These are just added aims. But they're not part of the grammatical construct. No, you don't need them.
The ism is repeated twice.
Yeah.
Is there a break in between them?
We haven't covered it, all right? Because what
Is that what you would want to say?
yeah.
Because if there is the question comes, why the question?
we haven't covered it, but actually it does go continuously. We have done there's a phrase relation between this and this, which we haven't covered. So I don't want to go into that because it's down the line.
Yeah,
Sorry?
it's exactly the same with all the vowels, everything.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to think deeply about it because I want you to just grasp this.
Grammar the same. Not the walls.
Because remember what we said is that there are at least 15 phrases. We've just covered 3. Alright? So there's a lot more phrases. Number 4 would be the hadha. Okay? Right? So we did the jar majrur, we did the mawsuf and sifa, and number 3 was Wada'ah, and number 4 is this. So the ismul ishara mushawar ilay. Okay, which is the demonstrative pronoun. This book, these idols, this house. So the relationship is with the hadha is that it is followed by a definite article, okay, and it is grammatical neutral, meaning that the bait that follows it could be baitu or baiti or baita, okay, depending on what before it. So if it was in the mubtada, then it would be hadal baitu. Right? Okay, but because it's followed by in the jar majrur, that's why it's hadal baiti. So it's really it's the definite article that follows the hadha, and it's always followed by ism, a noun. Yeah, because remember this is a pronoun abbreviation of a noun. So it's saying this is so it's more specifically a noun, and that noun is always in the definite article, and it always follows it. It's a simple rule actually, and the grammatical state is not affected by the hadha. Okay, it's affected by whatever before it. Okay. And I'll just give you an example here that's actually quite interesting with the hadha, since we're on it. We might as well cover it. So, taking that example, that very same example, all right, we have hadha, al-baytu, yeah? Hadha al-baytu, yeah? Right, and so that is this house, which is a غير مفيد, a phrase, right? Okay. Now we can also do this.
Sorry, hadha by why it's غير مفيد? Where it comes al means this, isn't it?
Al does not mean this. Al means the definite article.
The
Al-bayt, the book, the house. Al-kitab.
So when we say the, then we defining it as a complete sentence.
No.
Yeah.
This is where I'm coming to. Okay. So yeah, good question. I know where you're exactly coming. So if you want a sentence, we can convert this into a sentence, and then this will help you make this clear, inshallah. So. This is a sentence. Hada baytun. Then there's no phrase relationship, because the rule is for a phrase relationship, after hada there must be an al. Alright? Yeah. If there's no al, then there's no phrase relationship. So then you say this is a house. From this house to this is a house. So هذا البيت means this house, which is not a complete sentence. What about this house? You have to say something about it. This house is large or beautiful. This is a house is a full sentence. But you know that because there's no al. No, alama. This is for you now. Because you deserve this point. What if I want to say this is the house? How do I do that one? This is the house.
I'll guess. I don't know, to be honest.
I think you'll get it. I think you'll get it, inshallah. So, I have full confidence.
Ana haza baitu.
Huh?
Haza baitu.
No.
No.
Anyone else want to give a guess?
Hazal Baitun.
Hazal
Baitun.
Yeah. This is
Sorry?
No, but you can't.
I thought it was
Hazal Baitun.
Hi, Baytun.
This is
You can't take al and
you can't have an
Tanween, you can
no.
mean and God.
Yeah, al and tanween cannot come together. It can only be either or. You can never have a verb, a noun ism that has both. Impossible. Mustahil.
Okay.
So
We made a.
because we got this book, we got this is a book. What if you want to say this is the book? Yeah, I mean this could be. But it would clear Zahid's mind up completely in terms of the full ramifications, right, of what those things are. And
Hazal Bait.
no, he is just feminine. Hadha is male, he is female. Like here and huwa he, and here she. So hadha this man, hadha rajul, and hadhihi nisa.
You have to add it.
Yes, okay, the cogwheels are moving, mashallah. Go for it, Anna. Last chance.
I don't know. I'm trying to think that you have to add I would say a half.
I wouldn't, but
Okay. Like it has to be something has to be added.
I agree with
But I
that. You're
don't know
warm.
what. I'm not sure.
What does Anna mean? No.
Inna.
Inna Allah ma'asabr. Indeed, Allah. Inna. Ana,
Ana mean me.
I, or me.
But we did use ana previously to break, but that was a different.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
I don't know.
Okay. So,
Hazal Bait.
no, that's feminine.
That's
What do you do? Alright. Okay. So, the book, the house, we have al-bayt. We have to have that, yeah?
Yeah.
Because it's the book, the house. Yeah? So it's going to be al-baytu of some sort, yeah? But remember, we can't, if we just leave it there, it's a phrase, it doesn't become this is the book. What we do is the mirul fasl, which is where you add in a huwa. So what the Arabic grammarians have had to do to better resolve this issue is that they said that when you want to actually put in an is in this situation, you're going to have to, because remember the is normally implicit, right? You just assume it where it breaks up is. But in this situation, you have to add in an extra word, and this is the huwa, right? And it's called a damirul fasl. Like damir means pronoun, fasl means the barrier, the between the two. Okay. So if we were to actually break this down now, so hada would now be the mubtada, and huwa baytu would be the khabar, and within that you'd have a huwa which is the house, and then this. So the huwa comes. So that actually huwa al-baytu becomes the khabar, and that's how you then. So these are your three scenarios. هذا البيت بيت this house. هذا بيت, they're not matching, so that's cool. We can deal with that. This is a house. This is the house. هذا هو البيت. And هو البيت becomes the khabar, and هذا becomes the mubtada.
And it will always be in the top.
And so yes, because we always, the rule is with a mubtada and khabar, without a kana, without inna, is that they're both in the state of rafa. But what we understood was that within the mubtada and within the khabar, if there's multiple words within that one bit, then each one has to worry about itself. The whole of the compound sentence within the has to be in that state of rafa, but individually, we had fil bayti. Yeah? So that could be in khabar of kana, but bayti was not bayta. Yeah? It had to worry about what was before it, which was the fil, the jar. Yeah? So that's when you have to look at it individually. Now, the next question you might want to ask is, what about hada? Why is it not hadul? Has that ever occurred to you thought? Why is it not hadul? Because if it's in rafa, remember it's an ism, isn't it?
Do you have any example in mind of the red
No, it doesn't exist. But why not? But if it's totally in the same rafa, so why is it hada? Why can't we have hadul and hada and hadi? Does it not? Wouldn't that be a natural question to ask? That it's an ism. Why does it not express and reflect like Baiti does? Why doesn't it have that?
When we say this always.
No, that's just saying in English. We're not in English. We're in Arabic. So don't think English. Your Arabic mind now is that the rule is that every ism has a grammatical state, right?
Yeah.
And that grammatical state is reflected. Okay. The thing is that not all isms reflect that state. Remember? So we said that that most will, but like we said, there's always exceptions. Pronouns are exceptions, right? So if hada is the object, yeah. So I hit this man, yeah. So the rabtu, I hit this man. It's still going to be hada rajula. So hada stays the same. So whether it's in the subject or the object or in jar, like fi hadhihi al-bayt. So bayt reflected it with jar, with a kasra, but hadha stayed the same because all pronouns are like that. So there's what they call mabni, okay? And we will know what they are, and we'll come to that later actually. It's a full discourse. But just so that if there were any minds that think, well, how comes this is not, it is in a state of rafa, but it doesn't express it because it's one of those that doesn't reflect. But you can work it out based on the context of the jumla, the sentence, what it might be. Okay? Just as a little side point, okay? Because they're both obviously isms. Well, in fact, all three, so then you've got huwa as well. But huwa will always stay huwa, as does hada, as does hiya, anta, ana. They never change, they never reflect. But their grammatical state is beshak can be different. Can be nasab, can be jar, can be rafa. But the pronouns, as a rule, do not reflect those grammatical states. Alright? But ism nouns, ism adjectives do. They can be all three. And generally, ism adverbs are reflected with a fatha because they're in nasab. That's the thing about adverbs. That's how you saw jiddan, not jiddun. Yeah? Because jiddan is an adverb, ism, meaning very. And that's why it's with a fatha. Okay. So now you've covered. So alhamdulillah, you really are getting to grips with the sentences now, and we'll go back now to the text. So if we now go back to here. And so I'm just going to do a very quick translation and just break that down because I want to get back to the anna that we did last time so that we just remind ourselves of that new concept. So here, we very quickly, so we have the kana, we have the ism of kana, azal, and all this down the line is the khabar of kana. It's a compound structure, so it's in a state of nasab, but each word has to worry about itself. Same here, kana, ism of kana, and then this one is a compound structure in nasab. Here you've got the hada, which still the whole thing's in a state of nasab, but you see it's still neutral. Hada waladi, Ibrahima. Okay. So what I would like, can anyone just remind me why is this in jar? Yeah.
Because Allah.
Okay, we'll work that one. Alan, this one's for you. This one's for you. The clue to help you is that I rubbed it out. That's meant to be a clue.
The only thing you rubbed it out was Hava.
And a bit more. And a whole box. I had the whole box rubbed out. So that's a clue for you. Why is this in?
Is it because Ibrahim as a
Walid of Ibrahim.
Okay, look, what's the rule? This is the baby step rules that we always say to ourselves, is that we know when there's a kana, we have to break it down into 3 areas. Ism of kana and khabar of kana. So that's the easy bit. So we know that this is going to break out into 3 parts. We've got 1 part easy, kana, that's done. Now we're going to break it down into ism and khabar. We've got multiple words there, so it could be 1, 3, it could be 2, 2, it could be 3, 1. We don't know yet, we're going to work it out. Yeah, so you've got a 1 in 3 chance. Okay, so now we're going to try and find this ism of kana. Let's just try and do that. Okay, so the rule is that the word ism of kana starts with a noun, and the noun must be in the state of rafa. Right? So that starts this bit here. So we see the ismu, we can see waladi, Ibrahima, hada, so we can probably rule out all that and say our bets are that this is most likely. Okay, so now the question is yes.
That because of
Start where I am. This gives it away. This gives it away. What's going on here?
But Ismu is the Ism, right? Of Kana.
Sorry?
That is the noun, the Ism of the Kana, right? Or how does it modify that?
And the only, I think
Yeah.
it's but it doesn't, is it, the other thing is it Masul Sifa?
And
No, Ibrahima is a nasab because it's a prop,
no. It's you know what? The answer is more simpler than that.
Gosh.
It's the basic ABC. That you're skipping to G and H when you've done A, which is kana, all right? You haven't just done B. You haven't completed B. You've written the first line of B, letter B, but you haven't done the curly bits. It's just B. You haven't done B yet.
But we know that
What is it?
Ism and Khabar.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but Khabar we understand.
You haven't done Ism yet.
Yeah, we thought Ism was the Ism.
That's why it's stopping there with the ism.
So Ismu,
No,
what
so Ism Haza Wala P is.
Why? Why it can't be? He said, okay, tell me why it can't be.
can't be what?
The Ism is continue to Wala.
Remember what we said? When you've got multiple words, you've got to work out, it's a murakkab. You know it's a murakkab. You have to work out, is it ghayru mufid or mufid? Right? You know the whole thing is a mufid because it has a kana, you know that.
Yeah.
But when you have multiple words thereafter, you have to work out where the phrase relationship ends, where you put the is. Remember, this is where you're getting lost. You have to work out where does it work. Does ism and what follows it is completely separate, or is there a phrase relationship carrying on? If there's a phrase relationship carrying on, that line carries on until the phrase relationship ends. And that's what you put in the is. And this, I'm telling you, is the art of classification. If you want to be, this is the level where everyone gets completely stuck on this simple concept, and they see lots of words and they get lost in it. But if you follow the ABC rule, you'll never get lost.
The question is, Dr. that Ism.
What did you say there, Amamai? You would say it clearly. What did you just say there?
Ismun.
Mun or mu?
Mu.
Right, that's the mistake. That is the mistake.
No, but what I was going
No, let's stay there. Let's stay there. Because what I'm going to show you what I'm going to show Alright, what I'll do then, this is a really good point because what I'm going to do, okay, if I want to say, okay, if I want to say Zayd was here, let's just do that as an example, and then it's going to satisfy me. Don't worry, it will satisfy me. Okay, if I want to say, I'll write it first. Okay, so alright, so there we know that this is the fi'l naqis, this is the ism of kana, and this is the khabar of kana. Okay? Zayd kana Zaydun huna. Zayd was here. Alright? Okay. Now we know that this is the ism of kana. Right? We know that this is the big I'm gonna say it's the beginning of ism. Can you see a difference between Zaydun and ism? Yeah. What's the difference? Remember, you might say, well, what about Ibrahim? But remember, Ibrahim's change restricted. The rule of change restriction is that they never have tanween and they have dhamma fatha. There's no kasra in change. That's why that's got a single dhamma. But if it's a standard ism or noun, it should be tanween. This is not tanween. And remember, the rule we said that whenever you see an ism that isn't in tanween, if it's not a change restricted noun, it must be in a mudaf ilayh relationship. We said that because that's the only time where Zaydun would be Zaydu. Because if it was in a mudaf relationship with something else. Okay? Alright? Or if I said Kitab was Kana Kitab huna, the book was here, then it would be Kitab, so it would be Kana Kitabun huna, Kana Kitabu Zaydin, not Kitabun Zaydin. It would be Kitabu. And same here, ismu, and remember, you see the hadha, but remember, hadha has a phrase relation with al-waladi. So you take that together, and that's why you see this him is in a mudaf ilayh, and that's why that's in the state of jar. Because the mudaf ilayh is always in the state of jar, right? So this is the mudaf, and that's the mudaf ilayh. So this whole thing is the ism of kana. And Ibrahim, ma, is obviously in the state of nasr, and it's in the khabar of kana.
What happened? No, I said mudaf, but I didn't understand. No, I did. But what I was saying that when we went through this, we said that because we didn't learn haza at that time. We said we'll just take that as so. We didn't understand that. I didn't understand.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. But you give the hint, of course, when you
say.
What did you say? Smooth or smooth? There was a hint, but you didn't pick it up.
But look, this is what I'm trying to say. Is look, otherwise, you know what? This is what happens though. That if you don't know the rule, then you're quite easy to think Ismail must be the Ism, and then this must be Hadha Walad Ibrahim. You get stuck. You get stuck then. But now you know, the phrase is up here. Ism Hadha Walad. So the name of this boy was Ibrahim. Whereas you might think the boy is Ibrahim, you might think, Al-Walad Ibrahim is something, there's something else going on there. Well, the name of this was the boy Ibrahim. I don't know, something else you could be interpreting. And then it becomes critical because it can actually change the whole meaning, right? Okay? Alright? But you know what? This is hard in the beginning, but when you see it, and this is what we've done here, is something that's going to be repeated again and again. This is a common thing you'll see, right? So when you see Makana Ibrahim, you know, but you know this is change restricted, yeah. And then the next thing is that you have Yara. Verbal sentence cannot be. There's no connection between noun and verb. The fa'il always comes after the verb, never before. So clearly the break's there. That's easy peasy. Any sentence that you see a noun followed by a verb, you know that's where the next bit starts. Easy peasy. And then you look at it, so yara will be the verb. Then you look at an-nas wa yasjuduna lil asnam. Okay? And so is there a fa'il? An-nas cannot be the fa'il. Why, Azan?
It cannot be fa'il.
Why?
Right.
Yes, good question. And I won't ask you because I know you know the answer. I'll ask you another one instead. For being a smart aleck. This is important because you could say that the people see, right? But I'm telling you that that is not the fa'il. Fa'il means the doer. Because remember, a verbal sentence must have a verb and a doer. Yeah?
Doer?
A doer. D-O-E-R. The subject, the doer.
Doer.
The one who does the action.
I know fire maf'ul. I can understand that.
Yeah.
So you're saying why it's not fire?
Yeah. And what could be the mechanism of answering that question? What would be the method of, what am I really indirectly asking you? What is the
Maf'ul.
So again, remember we said it's going to be grammatical states, right?
Yeah. Yes. Very
Because all isms have grammatical states. We've got to be asking that question. For every ism, minus the mabnis like the pronouns, we've got it doesn't reflect it.
Because it's with fatah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And fatha in isms is normally indicative of what in a verbal sentence? So the fi'l, the fa'il, and the maf'ul bihi.
Bihi.
And the maf'ul bihi is the But go back to daraba zaydun amaran. That's your default position for verbs. It'll always bail you out. Daraba zaydun amaran.
That's verb.
That's verb, and the example differentiates the subject from the object. Daraba zaydun amaran. Amaran daraba zaydun. Still the same meaning. We swapped it around.
Yeah.
We can say amaran daraba zaydun. Why is it still the same? Because what have we kept constant in all those words? Darba zaydun amaran.
Okay. So it defines the fa'il and the maf'ul.
Correct.
And Amran.
Zayd hit Amr.
Amr.
Zayd is the subject, the fa'il. Amran is the maf'ul bihi, the object. So how would this connect in that relationship, that maths? Where would it be in that? Who would replace it? So if you want to say, if you want to put a nas in there, where would it go? Would it go in the darba, would it go in the zayd, or would it go in the amran?
That's darba. Isn't it?
Darba is a verb,
Yeah.
it's not an ism.
Yeah.
Is anas an ism or a verb? Anas means people,
Yeah.
so it can't be
Yeah.
a verb, can it?
Yeah. That.
So you can exclude darba just on loan because that's the verb and not an ism. So you've only got 50-50, you've got to toss up a coin as to which one it's going to be. So you've got a 50-50 chance, just blindly, or if you want to work it out, look at what the...
So it's Amran.
Yes,
It's Amran.
yes. Why?
Because of the fatah.
Yes. The only reason that's what's got double is because this is in definite article, yeah? Alright? So you could say darba zaydun and nas. So zayd hit the people. Right? It still works. Yeah? So now you know that this is the maf'ul bihi, right? The object.
Yeah.
So it can't be the fa'il, can it? So you can't then say the people saw, because the people saw or are seeing means that the people are the subject. They're seeing what? An object or whatever. So that's why you rule that out as the subject, do and fa'il, because it's in fatha, and therefore it must be the object, right? And so if that's not the fa'il, you have to find a fa'il, because otherwise there's no verbal sentence. A minimum, the verbal sentence must have a verb and a fa'il. Minimum requirement. It may or may not have a maf'ul bihi depending on the verb itself. Okay? Because certain verbs don't need an object, like I sat. I don't have to say I sat on a chair. Yeah? Whereas I am hitting, I have to finish it by hitting what? I'm hitting amr. Then I have to have a maf'ul bihi. So that's called transitive and intransitive. Right? Transitive is where I need to have an object, and the intransitive verb is where I don't need an object. It's just suffice with the doer and the verb, like I sat. Right? So daraba needs an object. Right? Seeing, which is this yara, needs an object. You see what? And then we went into this last time where you said, well, in English you can say I see. But remember, we're not thinking English, we're thinking Arabic. So what may be transitive in Arabic doesn't necessarily mean it's transitive in English, the seeing. Right? You can say I see. That works, because English seeing can be that. It can be intransitive. In Arabic it cannot, it requires an object. That's something that you just need to get your head around. So yura will always need an object. It's a transitive verb. So you've got the object there, right? So you're sorted out on that. Yasjuduna is a verb. And lil asnam, okay, is a jar majroor. So you can't really see a fa'il, right? The fa'il, as we said, is inside of it. Remember, we said? Yeah? You need to take out a hua. Yeah? Because remember, we said that verbs in Arabic are a combination of a couple of things. A pronoun inside of it, right? Not separated. So if you want to say, in English we have to use two as he hit, they did. Remember we did fa'ala, he did. Fa'alu, they did. Fa'alta, you did. Fa'altum, you all did. Fa'altu, I did. Fa'alna. So in Arabic it's one word. In English it has to be separated out because the pronoun is integrated in it. Right? So in yura, it's integrated in it. It's like the fa'ala yaf'alu. Okay? So the huwa is inside it. So that's where the fa'il is. Here. So this will be your fi'il, this will be your fa'il, and all of this is going to actually be your alright? And it goes actually all of it, and we haven't covered this relationship. Okay, we will talk about that another time. Just want you to get your head around this basic thing first. Alright?
It's very nice the way doctors say basic thing. And we are really struggling here.
you know what it is? This actually is the front end model. Meaning that this is the front end. So this is the hardest bit actually. I call it basic, but the basics are actually the hard bit. So the nuances that come later are going to be easy to take because you would have got all the basics founded. So you'll be able to know, like I said, there's always an exception. Those exceptions are the flowery bits at the end that make the thing complete. This is your trunk that you're learning here. And so yes, you're right, because the reason the basics are hard is because we're not immersed in that way of speaking. It's like English. Like, my English is flowing, it's grammatical, okay, but if you ask me the grammatical construction of English, I will fail. I don't know why I would say it the way I say it, because I was born in it. And it's the same for classical Arabic, that at that time they were born into it. So this would come intuitively from infants, just being spoken in this way, that they wouldn't know this analysis, like I don't know it, right? But they're born in it. That's why for us we're not born in it, we're not immersed in it. And in fact, most Arabs, if not all, virtually, are not immersed in it. They get touched upon it in school, where they learn a bit of Fusha and a bit of classical Arabic, so they get it at that, but they don't. It's not in daily life. So that all becomes historic. It's like English, learning a bit of Shakespeare or whatever, and learning English grammar at that stage, poetry and all that. But we've forgotten it all, and that's because we don't use it in day-to-day practice. Okay? So the same thing with classical Arabic. So it is hard for everyone concerned. So I don't expect this to actually be easy. I call it basic, but it's actually hard. But what I do say to you is that when you master the basics, you're going to fly. And it's such a wonderful feeling when this starts to click.
But that's exactly the same, because though we born with Urdu language, but we don't know the construction like that.
And because we're not born with it, we actually have to learn the construction to be able to understand the language, because it's a foreign language for us. So we have to go the other way around. We're not immersed in it. If we were immersed in it every day, if somebody was speaking to us all the time, our parents and what have you, then this would be an easier task. Because we say, yeah, I know. So like in English, I know that if someone said this is the grammatical term for it, I say, yeah, because intuitively I know that's how it's constructed. So for this one, kana ismu hadha al-waladi, you know there's something wrong, by saying that this is just the ism of kana, because it should be ismun. So you know ismu hadha must be this, it's moving on. You know intuitively, because you're immersed in it, that this must carry on. Whereas what you have to learn is that you don't know that intuitively. You actually have to know the grammatical equation to know that this actually isn't where it ends. Because it's not intuitive, because you're not immersed in it. Nor am I, none of us are. So that's why it's a battle for us all. But again, I say, this is a front-end model, is that you grasp it, then you will start to fly. And these lessons that we're doing are really the top end of the core basics that you actually... And if we do it this way, because in fact, if we just did Dungeon, we'd have worked that out, just on the meaning alone. But would we have gained anything grammatically as to construct? No, because once we get into a more complex line, we'd then be lost. And that's what happens with people learning Arabic, is that they pass this with flying colours. Because they don't go through the grammar, they just go through the meaning. I think, I've mastered the Qisas al-Anbiya, I can know every meaning because it's in basic. And then when they suddenly hit an adult classical book, they're lost because they haven't got all the grammatical equations. And what you're learning is that's why actually at the moment the meaning is actually not that important. It will be, it is important, but not at this stage. What's actually important is how you break this down. And where it breaks down. Where do you put the is? Where does the phrase relationship end? What is the state of reflection? Is it a complex compound word or just one word? If it's a one word, is it change restricted? And we know that there are reasons for change if it's a foreign name or what have you, yeah? If it's not, and if it's change restricted, it won't have tanween. If it's definite article, then it should be only single tashkil at the end. These are things that you just have to repeatedly get into your head until it becomes, until it does become intuitive to you because you keep reading the text. And that's why I say that ideally, if you really want to master what we're doing now, you should print this out, make your notes on it, and then go back and just read it, because that is actually the theory alive. By doing all this in your notes, because you'll remember the story. And by remembering the story and how these words construct, you're more likely to actually remember the theory, rather than writing, for demonstrative phrase, which is, ishara, mushara ilay, I have to have no, you just go to here, have the waladi, you got it. Because you see, that's, and what, because of the okay, and you just put a note that the actual grammatical case is not determined by the habit of what's before it. That's what you do. And then if you go through that repeatedly, it's more likely to remember. Because remember, as we go forward, this is all repeating with it. Although we did touch on Hadha last time, albeit not to this extent, but we did touch upon it. We'll find ourselves just going back and back and back, and not moving forward. And then what will happen is that you'll get a little bit frustrated that we're still where we are. Okay, we're still on chapter 2. The stages for this, just to remind you, is that we go through Qisas al-Anbiya, alright, and then we go to Hidayat al-Nahl. Hidayat al-Nahl is the classical book that's on grammar. It gives you every single rule. For you to appreciate that, you need to go through Qisas al-Anbiya, because those rules will come through on the book. And then that adult book lists every single rule, which you'll be able to appreciate because you've already done the rules through the children's book. Once we've done Hidayat al-Nahl book, we turn to Quran. we will do I'raab of the Quran from start to finish, page by page by page. Because this stuff is actually from the Quran. That's how they got the grammatical equation, is from the Quran. So it's not going to be foreign to you at all. It's going to be something that you apply straight away because you've got all the rules, because the rules come from the Quran. We do I'raab of Quran, and then when we do I'raab of Quran, then we actually then start to look at some of the books on tafsir and see what they comment. Because remember we talked about balagha, the method of expression, because now we know the equations, and we know different equations, so why this equation as opposed to that equation. Alright? And that becomes the balagha, and that becomes the deep insight, into and how they apply it, or whatever it comes to rulings or whatever it might be. You've got the solid background. So that is the simple stage here. Qisas al-Anbiya, we get through. And we got through quite a lot of core material. So it's not like a never-ending book. Alright? Then it's Hidayat al-Nahl. We go through that. And then page by page of Quran. Just go through all of that. And then with that alongside, we'll add in tafsir. And that is what we will do. And I would envisage that this, to get us through Qisas al-Anbiya at the rate that we're going, probably is going to take us a year to get where we need to get before we touch Hidayat al-Nahl. Right? And then Hidayat al-Nahl would be probably 6 months at least, right, depending on where we're at. Because if we have to keep going back to all some gods or whatever, that's what we do in reverse gear. So that's how we move forward. Yeah? So today was a bit of a reverse gear to just remind us of the concepts, okay, before we can move forward. Yeah? Okay. But it's a goal that we should all aim for, because that's where we're going to get to, inshallah. Alright? Okay, so this is the last thing that I'm going to do, because I think we covered a lot of basics, is just cover the anna. Alright? Because, so we're just going to cover this sentence. Okay. Again, I'm going to let Abdul Rahim, who's been very quiet and he's been almost escaped. But this is going to be arrived by Abdul Rahim. So yeah, Abdul Rahim. So if you could just first of all break it down into its basic boxes.
The whole law.
Wherever it ends. Yes. You know where it ends because of the work, so you can tell that must be a beginning. So it's going to be the whole lot, isn't it? The full stop, that's why you don't need the full stop, because actually that is enough to tell you that that's what the sentence is. So كان إبراهيم يعرف أن الأصنام حجارة. So I'll give you the meaning. So Ibrahim knew that the idols are stone. Hijab, stone. Alright? So that's the basic meaning. And that literally grammatical stuff, because the words kind of give it away. Just the words are there.
So the one bought from the car.
Correct. Which is called the Nafis, yeah. Up to and why? Go ahead, Brian. In case, can we have sleeping bags here? It's Saturday, I'm not working. I'm scared. Just let your wife That's quite scary. Yeah. So was I. And you know what? I don't mind us making mistakes. It's through mistakes and confusion that we actually learn. And that's the way to learn, is we have to make mistakes. If you did it 100%, there's no, you wouldn't really learn. So it doesn't matter. And I've made 1,000 mistakes before coming to you guys. So, I've done it privately in isolation, not in group.
laugh at you, that's all.
You already have.
But the only thing is, everyone gets laughed at.
You're all in the same boat.
Okay. So we know there's going to be 3 boxes, right? Right, Abdurrahim? So it's going to be a fi'l naqis and a...
Yes, mubtada and khabar.
No, we call it...
Yes.
Ism of Kana. Yes, right. So we know that. So it's a question of what bits of what.
Yeah, I'm just checking. The bit I'm confused is, if I have to add the Iraabul or not.
So
why I have to?
Let's focus on this. Let's work this on, because I think you're on the right track.
I know with the form name and.
Yeah, so that's great. You know that. So you know that classifies as the part of the ism. It's either there, so we know that's going to carry on. It's whether it stops here or it carries on. So Iraabul, what type of word is that? Oh, you're almost wearing matching t-shirts today. So okay. So this is where I think Iraabul is actually a verb, and it means to know. And we haven't covered verbs.
Yeah, that's the meaning.
Very good. Yeah, you're right. Because of that. Because it's a verb, and obviously an ism can't come with one verb. So that bit. So therefore, where's the khabar of kana then? Which is going to be even easier to from where to where. Yeah, because it's going to be 3 boxes.
Yeah, and then
Cannot be. Other than that, that's what we know. The rule is rule. Yeah. Doesn't matter how many words follow. It's going to be the khabar of kana. Whatever. It could be 100 words. It will still be the khabar of kana. 100 of them. Because the principle stays, this dictates the construct afterwards, unless there's a full stop like a word. So you just carry on, so you just identify the ism, which is done, and whatever's left over, to the end is all covered. Right? No matter what's constructed. Right? So great, good move. Right? So the next principle is that we have to now break down the compound structure. This one is in its own, this one is in its own, so there's nothing to be done. It's done. This compound structure needs breaking down because there's more than one. So how are we going to break this one down? What are we dealing with here? This khabar of kana. So you start all over again. So you imagine that this is the beginning of the sentence, right? Or phrase. So what would we say here? It's a verb. So if it's a verb, what are we then dealing with now? What?
So it looks like the here.
Correct. Because it's a verb. It's got to be. And it can never be a phrase. A verb is never a phrase. It's always a jumla. And what's the rule we say for a jumla fi'liya? It must have a minimum of, Abdurrahim, a minimum of what to constitute a jumla fi'liya? What must it have a minimum of? A fa'il. Nearly there. Just say it again.
Fa'il.
Which is the doer, the subject, fa'il, and maf'ul would be the object, which you don't need as a minimum. You need what? The doer, and what else? If it's the verbal sentence, it must need a the verb, which is called in Arabic fil.
Yeah.
I'll get you next time. Come to the front. Attention. Yes, absolutely right. So it's going to have a fil and a fa'il. Okay. So what is this then? Is it a fa'il? Is it a fi'il? What is it?
One question. Fa'il is also rafa?
Yes. Remember, amara daraba zaydun amaran. Daraba, the verb. Zaydun, not dun, not din. Zaydun is in rafa. Amaran is not amarun, not amarin. It is in nasab, fatha. That's the object, right? So, yes, the fa'il must be in the state of rafa. Must be. Is it reflected is a different question because there's a whole lot of stuff there that we have to work out. But the fa'il must be in the state of rafa. So, what are we dealing with here? Ya'rifu. What is that? That's that fi'l. Okay. So where now your next task, you spotted the fi'l, which is great. The next task is to spot the fa'il. Because that's the minimum. You can have a maf'ul bihi or not, that's the next question later, but we have to spot the fa'il. Right? Where is it? What would you do to try and find it? Or let me rephrase it. If you can't find it, where would it be then? Because it has to exist. If you can't see it, where must it be hiding? Correct. Very good. It's a huwa. Because you can't see it. Alright? Okay. Now, so the huwa is the fa'il. Alright? So what goes on beyond that then? It must be, it's got to be, it can't be anything else, but this must be the maf'ul bihi. Now, in the maf'ul bihi, okay, we have 3 words. Can you tell me anything about it? I'm going to open it up to everyone now. Anyone tell me about those 3 words? Anything? What's the comment?
It's in a way, jumla ismiya.
Correct. Because?
Because anna is
a sister of?
Inna.
Right? So like kana and inna, same as anna, it comes before a nominative jumla ismiya sentence. So that's where you would know that, because now you know the rule, okay? Is that anna is actually always before a jumla ismiya. That's why, actually, because if it wasn't an anna, you could have picked hijaratun. What that could be the fa'il, because it's in rafa. You could get mixed up with that. The reason that it's not is one, because it's meaning stone. For stone is lifeless, it doesn't. So how can it know? So the meaning itself would give that away. The second is this anna, right? Okay, would divide this whole thing into this maf'ul bihi into a harf of anna and a ism of anna and a khabar of anna. Alright? And what you should notice is that there's for so here and here and here. Alright? What I want you to notice is the tashkil at the end. Okay? And this would also go in line because in anna statements, right? Like, that's why we call it a system of inna, is that the ism is in nasab and the khabar is in rafa. In kana, it's the other way around. If it was a kana, this will be al-ismu hijaratan, because the nasab is at the end, not the mubtada, not the ism, alright? Inna and anna are the same, is that the ism is always in nasab, which is why you see al-asnama. Alright? Okay. You know also it's a sentence, remember what we said, is that these two aren't matching. So it's not a mawsul sifa, because you've got one single dhamma there, and you've got a tanween there, and you've got a definite article. Yeah, that's why it's called a single dhamma, because the can't have both. It cannot be al-asnamun, as we were thinking, yeah? It can only be al-asnaman, or al-asnamun, okay? And that means that this, if it was asnamun hijaratun, then that would be an adjective. That would be stony idols. That's how you would describe a stony idol, as opposed to the idols are stone. Remember we said about the waldun tawilun, tall child, or the child is tall, right? So if it was al-asnam al-hijaratu, sorry, al-asnam al-hijarata, because this is that, then it would be actually mawsul sifa, because they're matching. They're not matching in two reasons. One, definite article, indefinite. Second, ism of anna and khabar of anna, nasb and rafa. So clearly we're dealing with a ismiya, a jumla ismiya of some sort, and that's how you get that. Now the last thing, and this is the subtle point that I want to leave with this now, and hopefully you guys can remember this again, inshallah, is that the anna, in Arabic, you don't actually need the anna. You could have said ya'rifu al-asnamu hijaratan. He knows the idols are stone. Right? You could say that. Right? So why have we put in the anna?
To stress it.
No. Because I just said to you, ya'rifu al-asnamu hijaratan is a viable sentence. Okay?
Because the maf'ul bihi cannot be in a...
So the maf'ul bihi cannot be occupied by a sentence. That's the grammatical rule. Because that, if you take the article al-asnamu hijaratun is a sentence. The idols are stone. That is a full jumla. A jumla cannot occupy an object, a maf'ul bihi. That's why you have the anna. So the anna dilutes it or converts this jumla into a phrase, a fact. Because when you say that the idols are stone, is not a complete, it's not a mufid, it's not where silence is appropriate, it's not a complete sentence. What about that the house? The idols are stone. You have to say something more. So it converts it into a phrase, which is allowed in an object. Maf'ul bihi. Maf'ul bihi can be a single ism, or it can be a phrase, but it can never be a jumla unless it is converted down through an anna. And that's why you say knew that, not knew the idols were idols. You have to say knew that. It goes along with the meaning in English, but that's not why it's there. It's not for the dat, because you could put ya before asnam or hijatun, and you can say knew that the idols are stone. That can work, right? But in a maf'ul bihi, that sentence cannot be there. And al-asnama hijaratun is part of maf'ul bihi, it cannot, so you have to have the anna in there.
When we put anna, we are converting still into a jumla ismiya.
Sorry? No. With the anna, yes, it's an ism of anna. But the anna, yeah. So in some say, yes, you're right. You could say, well, okay, this is not a classical mubtada khabar. Yes, you're right. You could say, well, this is the ism of anna and the khabar of anna. But anna has a special role in this. It makes this into a phrase in meaning. That the idols are stone, in its meaning, is not a jumla. Right? Because a jumla is something that is mufid, where it's beneficial in terms of where silence is appropriate. Anna asnama hijarata, although it is a ism and kana of anna, is not where silence is appropriate. It needs to have something before it. So that's how they get around that. So its meaning, it becomes factual, as in that, and it converts it down from a sentence.
I really going back, though I know we are asking all of it. It really is helping, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It is helping so much.
Yeah.
I know we can cover, but I think it's really helping.
Yeah, well, every time.
This is a solid basis.
If we nail down the basis, then we can progress later. Otherwise, by rushing into the next and next doesn't mean anything.
And that's why I say to the brothers, look, I know it's frustrating to say like, oh, I want to get to Quran, I want to get to Quran, I want to get into that, but we've just got to, I'm giving you the vision that that's where we're heading towards, so you can see it, it's there before you, but we just need to get to this stage, because if you get there and you're stuck, you know, and like what's going on, then it's a waste. So you can see it in your vision, it's right up there. And we are getting to it. It's like you're driving the trees out ahead. You're getting closer to it, that mountain. So you are getting closer to it. Because I think I agree that today, although we went through some it actually solidifies it. And this stuff, you've just got to have it. You can see how it can bail you out of the most complex sentence by knowing these. And remember, we're covering 20% of the grammar that has 80% broad application. That's the basics we're talking about. So those basics have 80% applicability. Right? This 20% that we're doing here. Right? So it's already going to start helping you out here, inshallah. Okay? But you've got to, the thing you've got to take away, you've got to remember the anna. You've got to remember where it's coming in. It's got to be it's got to be, there's a maf'ul bihi, and it must be a sentence that's occupied. And I've got to know what is the rafa and the nasab. Yeah? That's it, right? And then you're away, okay? And then you'll be able to actually understand. And I'm not going to explain it today, but just literally going to end on this, and it's for next week. Is that you're going to also understand where so we were here. So. Yeah, where you also understand وَكَانَ يَأْكُلُ فَعْرَ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ الْأَسْنَانَ وَلَا where there's no anna in there. You're going to understand why that is, because the rule was that al-maf'ul bihi cannot be occupied by a sentence. Okay? Alright? And here, يَأْكُلُ doesn't have an anna الطَّعَامَ الْأَسْنَانَ. Right? You will understand why that is. Subtlety. Right? But I'm not going to do it today. I did it last time, we confused everybody, but we're not going to cover it. But you can only understand the subtlety once you've understood the anna, how that works. Yeah? Alright? So any last remarks? Thoughts, reflections?
I'm getting a bit afraid. The way we are answering your questions don't make you feel like quite dumb people.
Can I just say this, Zahid? This stuff, yeah, I've been doing on this stuff since 2012. We're now in 2016. 4 years. I've been covering this stuff, and so I'm saying so if you were in my little room doing it, you would have not tolerated me, because I just forgot, came back, lost it, revisited it. When I revisit it, gave me more. So this is actually very, very normal, and I'm actually, to be honest, I'm quite impressed with how much you've really picked up, because you're doing it every week. And I'm more impressed with some of the brothers who just come in halfway and have just managed to pick it up, or they missed a few. You guys, mashallah, brothers, are doing really well. And I've been at this before this. I've been at it for years and years, right? You haven't done this for a long, long time. So I promise you are going exponential, because you're developing this new kind of way of thinking. It takes time, and I think you've done really fantastic. I find it a joy to come and do this, because I think we're just doing it at such a good pace. I really do. I mean, when I've done this for other people, it's like I've had to be so cautious about how I say it, because it blows everyone just on just one terminology. You've picked up the terminology just like that. You really have. So this is all normal. You know, the mistakes, the confusion, this is all part of the learning, and you are going rapidly, I think. And the thing is, I could have carried on with the chapters, but then I didn't want the basis to be things, and I thought it was useful to do that. And when I've done this to you just twice, I've done it to myself 200 times. Right? So, you know, so you're ahead of my brain cells in that regard. And I've been doing this particular program for now coming up to 4 years. All right? So don't think that. And I think what's really the barakah of this group is really reflecting in what we're doing. I certainly feel it. I feel that when we do it together, I feel that everyone is zoning in. And then when we are confusion, we're able to clear that confusion, and there's some kind of epiphany going in. I'm like, church, you know, and that's okay. We'll forget some of these things, but we'll keep reminding. So I certainly feel something inside that it's really good that we're doing that. I actually really look forward to Fridays because of this, because it's just such a barakah environment that we're in, and we're all at actually the same stage. The only difference means I prepared the presentation, so I have an advantage over you. That's all. So what you are doing is mashallah, it's fantastic. It really is. You've picked up a lot. So on that note, Subhanahu wa ta'ala,